Welcome to Light Beyond the Ashes, the podcast where no topic is too taboo, too weird, or too sacred to explore. Here we meet souls from all walks of life who've risen from the ashes, who found their voice, their truth, and their light on the other side of trauma, awakening, and transformation. I'm your host, Amber Humphrey, a pediatric occupational therapist, spiritually awakened soul, intuitive healer, Reiki practitioner, and now a podcast host, walking this path right alongside you. I'm so excited to start this journey and finally just jump all the way in. In 2023, I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening that forever changed my life. I found myself going through something that there was no rule book, there was no guidebook for it, there was no roadmap. And before you knew it, I was deep. I was deep in a healing journey that I did not even expect or see coming. So I had like a lot of us, I had a really hard thing happen to me. And, I think when you go through trauma and you lose people, places, or things that you never thought you would, it catapults you into a spiritual journey or what might be called enlightenment or consciousness expansion. It has many names through many years, but for me, I call it a spontaneous spiritual awakening because I found God on the other side of this hell. I remember those early days when I was just feeling so much. I was so incredibly emotional that I felt like I was having my heart completely ripped in half, and I didn't know what to do. My husband didn't know what to do. My family, my friends didn't know what to do. I had never felt so broken before. And I'll never forget the day that it all really just exploded open for me. January 13th, 2023, my life changed forever. January 13th, 2023, my life changed forever. I remember being physically, emotionally exhausted from just doing an incredible build out at my company. We were working 17 hours a day, me and my husband, and it was very, very arduous labor. So not only was I experiencing deep physical pain and then needing respite and healing, I then began to walk through deep emotional pain when I lost somebody that I cared deeply about for a really long time. And in that falling away of a friendship that I thought was like a forever friendship kind of thing, in that I found myself. And I'm deeply, deeply, deeply grateful for the opportunity to find myself, not for the things that happened to me. Those were horrible, terrible things that happened to me and my family. But in that pain, I found my purpose. And my purpose is to talk to people about their own healing journeys. And as a pediatric occupational therapist, I heal little people's nervous systems every single day. I work with children 0 to 21 who have autism spectrum disorder, who have developmental delays, who have emotional dysregulation. And that's why I feel so called to kind of merge my world together with this podcast. And once you realize the connection between the non-speaking autistic population, telepathy, the Telepathy Tapes podcast and documentary that comes out in 2026, and how important their voices are in this story, it'll all kind of make sense, I think, in the end. It's still a story that's unfolding. And I'm very, very, very excited to see how it all comes together. We have a lot to learn. We have a lot to learn from those who can't speak in the way that we think is communication. With their letterboards, with their spelling, these non-speaking autistics are showing us the way. And when I started listening to the telepathy tapes, I knew that I had to start sharing my own experiences as someone who's neurodivergent. I have ADHD, complex post-traumatic stress, and I've really struggled in my life. I've struggled with my own sensory processing. I've struggled with my own inattention and difficulties with staying on track and organization, all the things that a lot of us experience who have trauma because you experience brain fog. And in this discovering of who I am and listening to the podcast, the telepathy tapes, and hearing what these non-speakers say and how they start calling themselves light workers, and in my own spontaneous spiritual awakening, feeling like I'm a light worker. I came here to shine my light into the world. I felt connection. I felt like there was finally a reason for why I had to go through everything that I went through. And I think it's just time for me to tell my story. So here goes nothing. Recently, I went through a very, very extraordinary experience. In 2023, I had a spontaneous spiritual awakening that forever changed my life. And ever since then, I have been on TikTok and I have been creating content to inspire and to spread hope. I've started writing channel messages and sharing those channel messages and receiving downloads from my higher self, from spirit, from God, and from what some would call interdimensional beings of light. And I know that sounds like a lot, and that sounds hard to believe. But God recently told me something that I'll never ever forget. God recently told me that people don't like it when you tell the truth. Tell the truth anyways. And ever since I was a child, I have been hell-bent on telling the truth. I don't lie. It's hard to keep up with lies. I've been lied about and I've been lied to, but I do not lie. Everything that you hear me talk about will be truth. Everything that you hear from my guests on this podcast will be truth. It's their true story. It's their real lived experiences. It's my real lived experience. I did not come here to play small. I came here to show the world who I am, what I'm made of, and the power of humanity and the power of all of us that lives within us. We are sovereign beings of light. We are eternal beings of light. Each of us is an electromagnetic field. We have a bioelectric field called the toroidal field. And when you understand the power of our bioelectric field, and when you have interference from your environment, from your own emotions, from pain and fear, you will realize how fear has been used against us. And right now, my heart is racing. I have had to take multiple takes to start this because I'm walking through what I call a big, big, big fear door. I've been afraid to speak my truth for a really long time. Ever since I was little, I just felt like I would get in trouble if I always spoke my mind. And then that followed me into adulthood. And I had big opinions and I had big ideas and I shared a lot, but I kept a lot to private to my chest as well. And I feel like I'm not doing that anymore. I have been told that I have a big mission. And my mission is to share your stories, not just mine. But on this episode, we're going to talk about my story. We're going to talk about what I went through and how I came to find light beyond the ashes. So I pray that you hear this wherever you're listening, however you're listening or watching, and you find hope. And you maybe find something that you didn't know existed before. Maybe you learn something new. Maybe you realize that you are more capable than you ever believed before. So here I am before you, exposing myself to the whole world with my emotions on my sleeve, and I am being brave because I have nothing to fear but fear itself. And I no longer have fear. I can't. I can't let it win. It robbed me of joy. It robbed me of love. It robbed me of passion. And so now I choose faith over fear. And I have been given a calling to do this podcast, and I have been given a calling to teach what I know. So I am safe, and I am protected, and I am guided, and I'm going to tell the truth. All right. So now that you know all of that, now that I've laid the foundation of I'm telling the truth, this is what happened to me. January 13th, 2023, I experienced a life-changing moment. It's a day I'll never forget. I had gone through significant emotional and physical pain by this point in my life. I had just lost someone I cared deeply about and who, despite it all, I sent nothing but love into the field for that person because without the betrayals, without the heartbreak, I never meet this version of myself. And I am proud of who I am. And so while I do not thank that person for the things that happened to me, I am thankful to God for getting me out of that situation and helping me to find my power. So that was a day that I was exhausted. I was at work and I was physically collapsing at work. I was in severe pain, so much so that I had to send patients home because I couldn't treat them. And then I went home that night and I was experiencing deep physical, emotional pain. And I was talking to my husband and he said something along the lines of like, did you do this for the kids? And if you know someone who has complex post-traumatic stress or you yourself suffer from it, you understand the power of brain fog. And you know that you oftentimes don't remember a lot of things when you're in a state of fear. And at that point in time, I was in a very, very, very strong state of fear due to the things that were actively happening around me. And unfortunately, I just fell apart and I fell to my knees and I called out to God for the first time, I feel like in my adult life. And I said, God, I don't know what I'm going to do. Help me, help me, help me. And I fell apart and I just cried into my husband's arms. And I reached out to one person and let them know. And I was not greeted with kindness. And the other person was my husband and he loved me deeply and he held me through this and he reached out to our friend and, shout out to Trudy. And she said, come over. And they were having like a pizza dinner, like with all their family and friends, like hanging out. And I was like, I'm not okay. And she's like, I don't care. Come over. And so then I came over and I went over for 5 hours and I cried and I cried and I cried and cried so much so that my hands turned white. And I remember thinking, because I have, a history of lupus as well. And I had remembered that you could get something called Raynaud's. And I was like, oh my God, my hands, look at my hands. Everyone was looking at my hands. And I was like, do I have Raynaud's? Come to find out, I was experiencing a massive adrenaline dump. Um, my rheumatologist told me that I did not have Raynaud's. I was experiencing significant trauma and adrenaline was coursing through my body, causing my blood to rush to my heart and my brain to keep me alive. I was in true fight or flight. And in that moment, I was sitting at the table and I was crying as hard as I ever had. And I barely could breathe. And I was feeling my infantile pain. I was feeling my toddler pain. I was feeling my teenage pain, my 20s pain, my 30s pain, my physical pain, my emotional pain, everything that I'd ever held inside and I had not processed came to the surface because the body keeps the score. And I remember looking across from someone I had recently met, Madeline, and Bree was with me and Dom was with us and our kids are running around. I'm just crying. And I remember Dom being like, I've never seen a person express so much emotion this way in front of people so openly, but I didn't have a choice. It was just coming out whether I wanted it or to come out or not. And I remember Madeline reached across the table when I just kept apologizing. I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And she just said, oh, honey, you're just a human having a human experience. And I was like, greeted with love and understanding and validation that the human experience is deeply painful sometimes. And then I started like unraveling parts of what I've walked through and why I've walked through it. And like I said, I called out to God that night for help. I was able to compose myself and go back home, and my husband held me with such deep love. Cole is my angel. Without him, I don't survive this. We met in 1999 on AOL Instant Messenger in 8th grade. Fast forward to 2025, he's my ride or die. He has stood by me through everything. And that man got me to where I am right now. He pulled me up out of the pits of hell when I couldn't. And so I'm deeply grateful to my husband, Cole. That next day, I started hearing the voice of God. And that sounds kind of crazy, right? Like, is she losing her mind? That was, I think, a few people's questions. I wasn't losing my mind. I was finally as clear as I'd ever been. I finally felt hopeful. I finally felt like, okay, I can survive this. Now, I still struggle with anxiety attacks and panic attacks, and I couldn't breathe a lot in those early weeks and months after the awakening, as a lot of us experience. But better days were waiting for me. And I had this voice telling me, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And I was like, am I going to be okay? How am I going to be okay? Who are you? And then on February 2nd, 2023, I heard as clear as day that my soul was pure. And I was like, what does that even mean? Like, my soul is pure. And that I heard that I had the heart of a lion, the heart of David, and that I had an uncorruptible spirit and that I would be tested in a lot of ways and that I would overcome it. And it gave me that fire inside of my body that I was going to be okay despite not feeling it okay, not having any shred of evidence that I was going to be okay. I just became profoundly aware that I was not alone and spirit was guiding me. Now, the funniest part about my awakening, I think, is that it was prompted on 2/2/2023 by the Pamela Anderson documentary. If I'm lying, I'm dying. I told you I'd tell the truth. So I was watching the I Am Pamela documentary on Netflix, and honestly, great watch. And I love that she shared her journals and her own heart and who she really was with the world, because she's been lied about and she's been made to be this, persona. And now she just is owning as she ages, owning that she's not wearing any makeup, owning that she is just like this pure soul and she loves being in her little mud boots out there picking gardens, like all of her fruits and vegetables out of the garden. And just, I love the naturalness that she now presents into the world and gives us permission to not have a face on, a mask on. And I'm sitting there watching it, and I come down with the flu. I had double pneumonia, didn't know it yet, but I had double pneumonia. And I was just sick as heck. And I recorded this. So I have recordings from everything, by the way. I recorded my entire spontaneous spiritual awakening. I recorded all of it. It's in writings, it's in videos, it's in voice memos, which I'm going to be sharing some channel messages on this podcast. Like, this really happened to me. And I documented every millisecond of it because I couldn't believe it was happening to me. And I remember feeling so called to hit record for like one of the very first times of a profound experience. So I hit record. It's very hard to hear and understand because I'm crying through my tears and I'm just like super sick. And in that moment, you hear me feel and hear and see infinite army of angels reaching around me. And they're enveloping me in a hug, and you hear me almost like get caught off guard by it. I'm like, oh, like my body just like feels hugged. And I remember thinking, I am so loved. I am so safe right now. And they told me I was safe. They told me that I could finally let down my guard and that I could breathe. And in this moment, you hear in the audio, you hear my body just go relaxed and I'm not tense. And I don't think I realized as a trauma survivor how much I lived in tension. Your body is always in this state of fight or flight. You don't really know rest or digest. You are always on this hypervigilant lookout for fear. And even if it's just a person who doesn't like you or a person who's trying to bring you down, that feels like a lion. It feels like a predator. And you walk in the room and feel the space. And that's what I would deal with every day. I could feel the presence of a predator who hated me, who once loved me. And I couldn't breathe a lot in those days. But then when I realized that I was safe, I saw my body, felt my body completely relax. And that is the peace that only God can give, a higher power can give. This is not religious dogma. This is just spirituality. This is just my experience of being an enlightened and awakened person. And a lot of us who have gone through these spiritual awakenings resonate with a moment where you just find peace. And it's a peace like anything you've ever experienced before. And so then you're just like eager for more. And you're like, okay, what was that? I want more of that. This was really hard and dark and scary, but you're making me feel so loved and you're making me feel so safe. I want more. And so I threw myself in to learning. And I think it was the next day is when I started scribing for the first time. So if you don't know what scribing is, I literally just got a pen and my journal and I started doing like kind of up and down strokes. And I was just like, okay, I opened myself up as a conduit of light and any being of light can speak through me. And I would, did like some protection things. Obviously I didn't know a lot and like that bit me in the butt later, but, be careful. Energy goes both ways. It's light and dark. It's contrast, right? Like you're going to be careful about what you interact with. But when you're in this safe space and you create your bubble and you're channeling with beings of light, it is beautiful. I started getting messages from past loved ones about my mom's health. I started talking with my my grandfather who had passed away before I was born, my uncle Carlos who passed away a few years ago from stomach cancer. And I was getting such specific messages that when I spoke them and told them to my family members, they were things I didn't know. They were someone's first dance for their wedding that never happened because of a tragedy. I didn't know those words. I was just told to write them down. They just come through me. And so I started experiencing telepathy. I did not know that humans had this capacity. Apparently, this is an ancient thing that has always been around. And ask the autistics, they will tell you. Telepathy tapes proves telepathy. The documentary that's coming out in 2026 is doing double blind trials and experiments to prove it for the skeptics who don't believe it. I also don't care if you believe me anymore. I used to care about that a lot. I don't care if you believe me. This is not for you. This is for me. And this is for people who are looking for answers. This is for people who want to know the meaning of life and why we're here on earth. And I think that the more you hear other people's stories validating a similar, if not same experience, where they started channeling, they started hearing, they started activating their own gifts, then you might start to be curious. And in the curiosity, you might start to remember. And when you remember, you'll also see that you have power and that it's not just for me and I'm not holding it and gatekeeping it. That's the reason I'm doing a podcast, is to share this knowledge. So when I started waking up in those early days and doing my scribing and my channeling, I was getting told all these things, like where I was from and like the purpose of my life and what I was going to be doing and why it was so hard. And it was a lot. And then all of a sudden I started being really happy. And my husband and my kids were like, "Oh my God, you came back to life." And I did not a documentary, I did a podcast on this previously. And we talked about what it was like to go through a spiritual awakening. So I do have that, that I shared in 2024, I believe, 2023. I recorded that in 2023 talking about my spiritual awakening. And it was just like my husband said at one point, he goes, I mean, if you see someone go through the pits of hell and you're not sure they're going to survive it and they start feeling better, you don't really care why they're feeling better. You just care about the person that you love feeling better. And so he stood by me no matter how crazy it got. He stood by me and he believed me. I mean, I think it was probably hard a few times when things kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I was like, no, it's going to get better. I promise it's going to get better. And then we still live in this place of, is it better yet? I'm still waiting. But no, there's so much proof that it has gotten better. And I am a walking, talking testimony of miracles being real. So the next thing happens is that I start going within my own body. My doctors are telling me to stay home, to be away from any negative energy that's making me have these adrenaline dumps and all this fear. And so I'm spending some more time with myself. I had never really connected with my body and my own self. I've always given all of my attention and my love to everybody else around me. I'm such a giver. If anybody in my real world knows me, I give and I give and I give. And I never ask for anything in return. But the one time I needed someone, the one time I really needed help, I was abandoned and turned on and then made to be a horrible person, painted to be a monster. And that was awful to walk through. But I'm none of those things. This is who I am. This is who I am. And so I reclaim my power by not allowing lies to be told about me anymore. I'm going to tell my truth through my own lens, through my own lived experiences, because they are based in reality and they are based in facts. And I've documented the entire process. So in that, by April of 2023, I started hearing more prophetic things. And a lot of these prophecies have already kind of happened. I know that kind of sounds crazy and maybe to some blasphemous to say that I have prophecy, but I do. A lot of us do. A lot of us are seers. So I have something called claircognizance, clairaudience, clairvoyance, and clairsentience. I hear, I see, I know, I feel. I get all of these extrasensory perceptions. We are extrasensory perceptors. We just feel these things. So I think it's very important for a moment to break it down when you know of, you have sight, taste, smell, touch, like hearing, you have your five senses. But as a pediatric occupational therapist, I work with the other senses. Have you ever heard of proprioceptive input? Well, that's where your body is in space and knowing how much pressure to use in your joints in your body. That's where you know if you're going to hold a bowling ball with one hand and then you're going to grab your Diet Coke with your styrofoam cup, you're not going to squeeze your bowling ball and crush it. And you're not going to drop the styrofoam cup because you have an internal sensation telling you how much pressure to assert. This is your body awareness. Then you have interoception. Maybe another word you've never heard of before. Interoception is your internal sensation of thirst, hunger, needing to go to the restroom, and your emotions. And a lot of kids who have autism have a hard time with interoception. A lot of kids who have emotional dysregulation, a lot of people that have emotional dysregulation have a hard time with interoception and identifying the emotions that they're feeling. Okay, so you didn't know that word existed, but it still existed and it's there. And in my profession, I use it all the time. And then another sense is called vestibular. So vestibular input is your sense of movement. And so your head in space. And that's how you know if you're upright, you're sideways. If you've ever experienced vertigo, that is your vestibular system at work. By the way, if you ever get dizzy and you're spinning, or your child is spinning and they get dizzy, jump 10 times. It'll reset those crystals in the semicircular canals in their ears. Fun tip for parents. But there's also clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, and clairvoyance. Just because you didn't know that they existed did not mean they did not exist. So for those of us who have gone through such a profoundly deep experience where our consciousness is expanding rapidly, you're trying to learn as much as you possibly can because it's so foreign. And yes, there are books on this. There's plenty of books to talk about this. But I really like learning about the power of the mind and how we can heal. So Joe Dispenza is a good place to kind of start. But then also Dolores Cannon talking about who and what and why we're here, because we're a little bit more powerful than we've ever been told as humans. So as I awoke, I finally started learning more truth about humanity, and it was kind of difficult. When you start to learn the truth of what's been going on, of what we call the matrix, it's just a fear matrix. It's a paradigm that is meant to keep you in a state of fear, because when you are living paycheck to paycheck and you are in a state of fear, how can you ever create? How can you ever expand your consciousness if you're just trying to pay your bills and feed your kids and feed yourself and keep a roof over your head? You can't. You cannot be present. You're always living in the past, or you're always living in the future. You're afraid of when that bill's going to come. You're afraid of the decisions that you made. Now that you know better, what could I have done differently? And what does that cause? It causes anxiety, insomnia, depression, pain. And we don't have time to process your emotions because you have to get up and go back to work the next day. And you never get that break. We don't have unlimited paid time off, especially not in America, to heal what your body is keeping the score of. Eventually, your body says enough is enough. And we call it burnout. It is burnout. Your nervous system gets burnt out. Your body gets burnt out. And so as a person who was experiencing burnout, I had to start using my own emotional regulation tips on myself that I teach children every single day. So I started doing vagus nerve stimulation. I started doing deep breathing, the ear circles where I'm rubbing my ears up and down my earlobes, peace fingers where I've got a peace sign and I'm rubbing in front of and behind of my ear. I'm stroking down my neck. How often are we doing this when we're stressed out anyways? Just stroking your neck and be like, oh my God, taking some deep breaths, doing humming breathing, doing box breathing, grounding barefoot in the grass, drinking ice cold water, putting an ice pack on your chest. All of this stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. And in fact, the vagus nerve, when you have ice cold therapy, it stimulates the diver's reflex, which then inherently lowers your heart rate. It's a strategy they use in hospitals. If you have high heart rate, put some ice on your chest and watch what physiologically happens, or on the back of your neck. Like, you don't have to be heavily medicated, sedated, and numb to heal. In fact, I did those things for several years and I did not find respite. I was just hiding and running from the pain. And when I finally confronted it and I gave myself time to heal and space to heal, even if it meant that I would lose people, places, and things that I cared deeply about, I found peace. I found the peace I'd always been looking for. I found the peace that always belonged to me, that I deserved. I was always giving so much peace to everyone else, and I was never experiencing peace. I never knew what it was like to feel calm in my body. I might have acted like it. I masked a lot in my life. And I think it's going to be hard for some people to believe me when I talk about the daily pain I experienced, the daily chronic pain, the physical, emotional, mental pain. It was my whole life for the most part. And I think people just got tired of me saying I didn't feel good. So I might have still said it, but I said it way less than I was thinking it. And eventually you just want to do something about that. And one day my body said no more. And that's when I collapsed. And that's when I had to heal. So the things that I am teaching and talking about on this podcast are from my own first-hand lived experience. I don't think it's fair for me to have this wisdom and knowledge and not share it. So fast forward, again, jumping back into the awakening, fast forward to April of 2023. My mom was not doing well. My mom was dealing with polycystic kidney disease. She's been dealing with it since she was 39, almost 40. And then she's right now 63. So it was something that we had lived with for a really long time. And she dealt with other health conditions as well. But, we lost her father to it at, I think 49 years old, 48, 49. And it always kind of lived in the back of her mind that something could happen with the polycystic kidney disease. And she hadn't been doing well. And I remember kind of playing with my gifts from time to time and channeling, and people really liked it at first. People thought it was really cool. Some people who I don't talk to anymore thought it was really cool then, and until it didn't feel cool anymore. But I remember tapping in one day, driving to Chick-fil-A with my kids in the car. And I asked how my mom was, again, with my mind, telepathically. And I was like, "How's mom?" They're like, "Not good." And I was like, "What do you mean not good?" And I heard she was terminal. And I remember falling apart. And I made my way inside. I got the kids the food. They went to go play in the play place. And I called my sister and I told her, I said, "I don't think mom's doing well. I just heard from Spirit, and Spirit said she's terminal." And it was all I could focus on. And my kids had gone up to go order an ice cream cone. And then the lady came back with the ice cream cones. And I'm in a puddle of tears and I'm just crying, talking to my sister with my AirPods, and she just kind of sets them down on the side of the table. And the manager then comes up a few minutes later, and he's just a sweet guy. We actually have gotten to tell him the story recently when I ran into him again. But he said, "Hey, one of my kids," because he called us employees his kids. He goes, "One of my kids told me that you could really use a warm chocolate chip cookie and a hug." And I cried, of course, as one does, who's a sentimental person like me. And I got the hug and I got the chocolate chip cookie, gave it to my kids, and it just was like God sent me an angel to comfort me in the physical moment because I was so beside myself with grief. And I got home and I told my husband, and I said, "Cole, I don't understand why, if God is here and God is so good, why are they going to take my mom from me? What do you mean she's terminal? I don't understand." And I remember really just falling apart and not being well. And it was almost midnight that night. And I was sitting in the grass, as I now did as a daily ritual. I was sitting, I call it ass in grass. Go put your ass in the grass and just talk to God. Go find you a good cozy tree and talk to God and hear what you hear. And out of nowhere, I saw and I heard there's always room for a miracle, with a big number one finger popping forward. And I was like, "Cole, there's room for a miracle. Oh my God, there's room for a miracle. I think she's going to be okay. I think we're going to heal her." And I was just so hyped, and I knew and I believed in this miracle. And I was like, I'm all in. And I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my crystals and I'm just going to put my energy. I didn't know what the heck I was doing. Right. And I didn't understand the power of frequency at the time. Now I do. But I was just beside myself with excitement, some grief still. And my parents were like, "You're crazy." I'm like, "No, I'm serious. You're terminal, mom." She's like, "No, I'm not. My doctors haven't told me." And I said, "Okay." And I told my dad, told my stepdad, told everyone. I really did, because I was like, I heard it. And when I hear at this point, everything kept happening that I was hearing. I was warned about certain things. I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, that ended up happening. Got it. Got it. This is going to happen." And then nothing happened. And then fast forward to July, apparently. My mom was told privately that things were not looking good and that she was entering end-stage renal failure. And then by August, she was told that she was terminal. And by September, we started hospice right before her birthday. And she turned 61, and they told us that she had 3 to 6 months to live. We were not okay. Our family was so far from okay that I did not know how any of us were going to get through it. And through the grace of God, we did. Fast forward 2 years. As I'm filming this, it is September 2025. My mom is celebrating her 63rd birthday on September 11th. And I cannot believe it, but I absolutely can, because I set my mind on the fact that my mom is going to be a miracle. I don't exist within a reality where my mom doesn't survive. There's the power of a miracle. And in that miracle, we got more time. And in getting more time, our family healed, deeply and profoundly healed. Individually, collectively, we healed. My relationship with my mom has never been better. I love her so much. Anything that I've ever done to her, she has forgiven me. Anything that she's ever done to me through circumstances and just her own pain and suffering, I have forgiven. Same thing for every other member of my family. I do not hold any grudges against any person or place or thing, period. I know that these things happened, but they happened apparently, what I've learned, for my soul's growth. And I had a lot to work through. And I came here to be a generational curse breaker. And God gave me a warning. God gave me the heads up. And then it happened. And then the miracle happened. And she's still here. We don't understand it because her kidney function is so low. How in the world is she still with us? She was transitioning. May to June of 2024, they told us she was transitioning. And she didn't, because she's a miracle. She came out of the transition. How does one come out of a transition? Her blood pressure being 60 over 40. How does it go back to being 100 over 70? How do you go from having things that are not compatible with life to then living? And in that, my mom started doing weekly Bible studies, and she found her greater connection with God. And then she would listen to me, and we would channel messages together. And I was able to give her messages of hope from Spirit, from her dad. It's been such a beautiful gift. And so anybody who tries to mock or make fun of anybody who's gone through a spiritual awakening, I ask you to pause. And I ask you to think and reflect on what you would do if you experienced what we experienced. There's so much fear in the world. When you feel love, why would you not lean all the way in? Why would that not become your entire guiding compass? Why would you not want something different because nothing else has worked? And that's why I continued with this journey. That's why I continue to learn and grow and become a Reiki practitioner and work through healing and energetics and tuning forks and continue to expand my repertoire of healing and knowledge because I see it helping people. So again, I don't care if people don't believe me. I really don't care if people are mocking me or think that I'm a joke. I don't care. Old Amber cared. New Amber, with respect, I don't give a shit what you think about me because I am a kind, good-hearted person. And I treat people with love and respect and compassion. And I'm here to help people's lives improve, not make it worse, not to make them feel judged, not to make them feel bad about themselves, not to mock them or make them feel less than. We have enough of that in the world. Let's try something different. Let's try love, non-judgment, and compassion for once. So, again, I'm going to continue telling the truth, and it might make people feel uncomfortable. I'm sorry. This is just the truth. So next, after my mom, we end up having these miraculous moments. I start experiencing miracles of healing in my own body. I was diagnosed with lupus, and through blood tests, systemic lupus erythematosus, and it runs in my family as well. And I had significant pain. I had biopsies. I had eye surgery that helped to diagnose this. Bilateral lacrimal glands in my eyes, my tear ducts, that diagnose this disorder. And if you don't know this, lupus is an incurable disease. And it ravages a lot of the body in a lot of different ways. And I have struggled with things throughout my life, but my body started healing in a way that didn't make sense. And so my rheumatologist played a big role in 2023 because I kept going to him. I was like, I'm not okay. It's my lupus. It's this. And he's like, Amber, I'll do the latest test for lupus. This is the most accurate test we can possibly do. I'm like, okay, great. Let's do it. I know it's going to be worse because I feel terrible. And then this is the early on when my hands were turning white before the healing, and came back, and there I had already started finding God, and I was already walking through all of that, and God told me I was safe. And then those tests came back. There was no evidence of lupus any longer. And I'm like, huh? How does one just not have lupus anymore? Like, that doesn't happen. I wasn't on any of the medications anymore. I stopped taking them because God told me I could heal my body. And then all of a sudden it was gone. I still struggle because of my physical nature of my job. I still struggle with like back pain and, body pain from time to time. And I also don't take enough of a break. I work really hard. But I started noticing that my body was changing, and I was able to move better, and I was able to experience life in a way that I never had before. And so I think that when you find spirituality or find a higher calling or higher purpose, you actually end up finding so much bliss on the other side of it. You have to walk through the dark night of the soul to get there. And that's a very painful place to be. And to kind of like let you in on the secret of what a dark night of the soul is, if you've never experienced one, it's the most soul crushing experience of your life. And it does wait for you once you wake up. When you first wake up, you're going to feel joy. You're going to feel bliss. You're going to feel excitement. You're going to feel powerful. You're going to be like, oh my God, I'm God. And I'm like, yeah, of course you are. You're a fractal of God. You're a God creation. God is within all things, living and non-living. Yes, you are of God. And you're going to move through that one and you're going to be okay. And you're not going to have an egomaniac complex because we are all God. We are all expressions of God and consciousness because consciousness is non-local and we're all experiencing this whole thing together. And so when you're walking through it, you're going to then find the shadow. And all that we do through humanity is experience contrast. And so to kind of break into that part of this, I really need you to understand the power of contrast because we see evil in the world and we see really bad things. And we're like, why do these bad things happen to good people? Why do these bad things always keep happening to me? Because it teaches you. It teaches you what it's like to live a life of suffering. It teaches you compassion. It teaches you to appreciate your health. It teaches you to appreciate your wealth. It teaches you to appreciate connection and relationships because one day you might not have them. And then it teaches you all of the breadth of emotions from anger and greed and corruption and sadness and pain and rage to love and joy and laughter and peace and harmony. How do you ever appreciate and value any of the other emotions if you've never known the opposite? Everything is duality. And in quantum physics, they teach about how quantum entanglement, and you look at the yin yang sign, they've proven how the heck this yin yang sign has been known for eons and beyond is beyond me because now we're seeing it under a like electron microscope and it looks the same because when two protons are in the quantum field, they're entangled through duality, the light and the dark. So you have to walk through the darkness to find the light. That is why this podcast is called Light Beyond the Ashes, because we all experience pain and then we can all experience joy and peace on the other side of it. You just must be willing to change your mind. You must be willing to learn that there's things that you haven't been taught. You must be curious enough to question things and be unafraid of what you find on the other side or what people might think when you're talking about it. Because the things that I'm going to be talking about on this podcast, the things that my guests are going to be talking about on this podcast are not new. This is ancient knowledge. This is ancient wisdom. This goes back to Egypt and far beyond. I mean, we're going to be talking about some Anunnaki stuff. We're going to be talking about those. We're going to be talking about ancient civilizations. Like, this is just real, my friends. And frequency is real, and frequency heals. It's been ignored. It's been made to be quackery. It's been made to be fake. It's not. You're a bioelectric being of light. Literally. You are a toroidal field. What you put out is what comes back into your body. You get what you give. Karma, right? These are all phrases and things that we say. I think one of my easiest example that I've said on my TikToks before that resonate with a lot of people is that we believe in energy sometimes, but not all the times. So think about how you believe in Wi-Fi, right? You're probably watching this on Wi-Fi. Can you see Wi-Fi? Did you see the little woo waves go over here and connect to your computer so you have internet? Or do you just believe it? So seeing isn't always believing. You just know it's happening, right? You can walk into a room and know when the energy's off. You can cut the tension with a knife. It's a phrase, right? Good vibes, bad vibes. She's good vibes. Yeah, I like her. She's cool. She's got good vibes. Oh, he's not great vibes. Oh, I got bad vibes from him. You feel vibrational frequency. That's why you're saying they've got good vibes or bad vibes. It just is. And again, I think that, we're just made to feel disempowered. We're made to feel like this is woo-woo and weird when it just is so. So I'm hoping that I'm already inspiring you to question things. I'm hoping that I'm already piquing your interest of knowing that there's more that you haven't quite been told. And yeah, I got a little bit of ADHD and I'm going to jump all over the place because that's how my brain works. And I think it's my superpower. And if I'm really interested in it, I'll come back to it, I promise. But it's so exciting to see humanity collectively waking up. And there's so many things that I experienced in my dark night of the soul in the shadow that are hard to talk about. And I'm not going to lie because I promise to tell the truth. I tried filming this earlier and I had to stop because I started crying because I was afraid. I'm really afraid for some reason about speaking the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help me God, about what I walked through, about what I experienced, because I've experienced hate. I've experienced people defaming me, and it hurt, and it almost ruined me, and I almost took my life multiple times. In the last 10 years, the last 2 years, in the last 2 years, I have struggled to find reasons why to live, even though I have beautiful children, an amazing husband, an amazing company, and amazing friends and family, and soul tribe. When you are in deep grief and suffering, taking the next breath is sometimes hard. And I really want to take time to make sure that I'm being very open with how hard it can be, because it's not all light and love. I would be doing you a disservice to tell you that. And I might smile and I might be sweet, but I know rage and I know pain and I know sadness. I have cried a tsunami of tears. And I came out the other side of it because I found God, because I listened to my higher self. I listened to the voice within telling me, one more day. You've got one more day. Keep going. And I did. And here I am. And so I pray that you stay one more day and that you find your purpose, because I love you very much. And if you're listening to this, you're here for a reason. And so am I. So the truth is, when I was in the shadows, I was vulnerable and susceptible to very low vibrational frequency energy. Some might call that demonic energy, darkness. This has been recorded, video recorded, audio recorded, witnesses many times, many ways over a prolonged period of time in various settings. I did not have just one or two episodes of this. I had many episodes of this, and it was very frightening to walk through. I'm not ashamed of it, but it was scary for me and my children and my husband to walk through without a roadmap, a guidebook on what to do when that happens. I didn't even have sage the first time it happened, let alone Palo Santo or any kind of rituals or any kind of clearing or any shamans. I have all those now, but I didn't have a way to heal and know what to do then. I didn't know how to protect my energy. I did not know what the heck I was doing in those early days. But when you are in a really, really low state of grief and sadness and despair, dark energies are easier to latch onto you, is what I've experienced personally. So in those early months, there were episodes where I would have dark entities attached to me. And it felt very scary. And it felt like it was overtaking my body, and my body would do things that I was not prepared for. And it was very painful. It was a very visceral, physical, somatic experience in a really not great way. And the only thing that worked time and time again was casting it out in the name of Yeshua, Jesus. And I know that sounds so crazy. You're like, what? Really? No, really, I promise. It would flee. It would flee. And it would get really, really mad when people prayed over me. It would do things and say things that were disgusting and hateful, for which I will not repeat right now. And people continued praying even though they heard it. And they would send light and they would heal me and they would get me through it and I would survive. I had my Reiki master helping me. I had multiple people helping me get through this. I found people who knew what the heck they were doing, and they were wonderful because they wouldn't even charge me to help me because they could just see and feel the despair. And so I'm just so deeply, deeply grateful for every mentor and every person who came into my life during those days to help me and my family out, because we did not know what was happening. I now protect myself more with thorough energetic boundaries, and I know that fear loves more fear. So when I am ever feeling anything, which it has been a very long time since, if I ever get that experience, I don't give it more fear. I don't yell at it. I don't give anger to it. I would just say, I love you. God loves you. And you'd watch it flee. You're like, I can't live in the light. Like darkness simply cannot live in the light. Like too long didn't read, darkness can't live in the light. And so if you're feeling something that is not of you and it feels very negative and it feels very scary, the more you're like, go away. I hate you. Get off me. Like maybe you cuss and you scream. All it did was make it more powerful. When I put on high frequency music and I started saying, I love you, God loves you, didn't stand a chance. It just didn't stand a chance. It's like a cheat code. Let me just tell you right now, send it love and watch what happens. The stories I could tell are crazy. I might reserve those for my books. But they happened and they were documented and they were real. And I got through them. And so now my entire focus is to walk through this journey authentically and honestly myself through my truth telling. And I hope to inspire someone along the way because I have experienced miracles that don't make any sense at all. And I should not be standing here before you in many ways. And I am because God promised me a miracle. And so you're going to be meeting some beautiful guests on this podcast who have walked through the ashes, walked through the fire, and like the phoenix, they rose and they found the light within themselves on the other side. So I'm just so excited. I feel like, you know, the world needs this right now. We're going through a mass global awakening. It is not an accident that I am here. It is not an accident that I am supposed to be doing this at this time. This is the age of Aquarius. This is the time for transformation. And I know that we can all feel what's happening all around us. And there's a lot of fear happening. There's a lot of fear intentionally occurring. And remember what I told you about fear and the darkness. What does it hate? It hates love. It hates unity. It hates the light. So what should we do more of? Be the lighthouse. Be the beacon of hope on the horizon that they've been looking for. That's what I'm trying to do. That's what my guests are doing. This is not fringe. It feels fringe because we don't talk about it openly as a society anymore. This was commonplace knowledge in the past. It's been kept from us. I'm going to be bringing on people who talk about the history of the world, talk about the history of humanity and consciousness, and the science behind frequency healing. I'm not doing this as a person who has nothing to back it up. I'm a woman of science. I have a master's degree in occupational therapy. I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. This is real. And we're going to tell real, true life stories. And people don't like it when you tell the truth. Tell the truth anyways. And like Mel Robbins says, people might judge you or mock you or make fun of you. Let them. Who cares? That's their life. You are the main character in your life, and everyone else is the main character in theirs. So this is me showing up authentically as myself and showing you who I am and giving you a taste of what it's like to go through this. And I just hope that you find peace when you listen to my voice, when you listen to these messages, and when you hear the stories of others. You're not alone. I wasn't alone, but none of us are alone. We're literally in this together. And I'd say this all the time on my TikTok. I say this all the time on my TikTok. When I heal, you heal. And when you heal, I heal. And when we heal, we rise. I think it's time that we rise and we can have a love revolution, right? How cool would it be if like we just interlocked hands and like an alternating current, like Tesla teaches us, we send light into the world around us. And the ripple that expands beyond is infinite and eternal. And nothing can stand in the way. You're just going to watch our light shine. And the darkness can't hide anymore. The darkness and corruption and greed and all of the fear paradigms and all of the programming will fall away. This is just what's happening, guys. I promise you. I need to real fast talk about something. I need to teach you all about the Schumann resonance. Before we go, the Schumann resonance is the vibrational frequency of the earth. And you can track this on the Earthbeat app, or you can just Google it. The Schumann resonance vibrates, the earth vibrates at 7.83 hertz, I believe. And we are bioelectric beings of light living on a bioelectric field, an electromagnetic field called Earth. Okay. When the plasma in the atmosphere and the ions are moving around and doing all the things from lightning and storms and all of the charged particles, it affects the human body. So when you hear me ever on this podcast or on my TikTok talking about, hey, the energy was a lot today, how's everyone feeling? Because we are one collective consciousness. We all walk through similar experiences at the similar time because we are one consciousness. Let me make sure you understand that. We are one. Does not matter your skin color. Does not matter the borders that are drawn on the earth. It does not matter your race, your ethnicity, your culture, your religion. It does not matter. We are one. We are one. We are one. And in this oneness, we experience high emotions and low emotions at similar times. This is measurable. I have plenty of followers who are following me, and Aaron Brown and all these other amazing creators who talk about the Schumann resonance for a living. They talk about the correlation between what these scales in Russia and Italy are reading and showing us when big bright light energy is coming in or when really red dense energy of release is coming in. And then look around. Ask a friend, have you been having a headache lately? Do you have exhaustion? Are you dizzy? You got some nausea? Does your body hurt? Do you feel like you can't sleep? Are you waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you're unsure of why? Do you feel like you are having an existential crisis? Do you feel like you no longer resonate with the people, places, and things around you or your job or the way of living and things are feeling really off and you want more? That's what this is, guys. We're going through a mass spiritual awakening. Call it what you want. Enlightenment. Human consciousness is rising. This is real. It is measurable. There is correlation data being tracked right now. We live in a quantum realm of infinite possibilities. And in the quantum field, they talk about the observer effect. This is where there's wave particles moving around and there's two slits. It's called the double slit theory. And there's two slits there. And the wave particle is just there until there's an observer. And as soon as there's an observer, it goes through one of the slits wherever it's being observed. This shows you that all possibilities of reality are occurring simultaneously until it is observed. So the power of your thoughts with your emotions are incredibly, incredibly important. Think about the future that you want. Feel that future and how it would feel to live in it, and then embody that. And then watch your dreams come true. Watch your life change. Now, does a lot have to change in order for you to get there? Heck yeah. You probably have a whole lot of misalignment around you because you don't feel good. You want something to change for a reason, right? If it was all good, you wouldn't want anything to change. So you're going to have to lose some people, places, and things to get there. And it's going to feel a little uncomfy and a little bumpy. I'm real sorry about it, but it's just going to make you finally release the things that no longer serve you. The people who no longer serve you, the people who are secretly cheating behind your back, or the people who are secretly talking about you behind your back or trying to plot and scheme to take you down. They are. It doesn't feel good for a reason because you have an intuition who's guiding you. And if it feels wrong, it is wrong. Listen to your intuition. It is so incredibly important. Okay? So yeah, this is just like the introduction. This is the appetizer of information because there's so much. I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this. I love this stuff. So if you feel like you're interested in what I'm talking about, join us next week when we have our next guest on. I cannot wait for you to meet each of these guests because they're so cool. First of all, they are real people who have walked through the same things as me. Different scenarios, but same dark nights, the same rising, the same phoenix rising moment. And they found their purpose on the other side of it. And they are here to share their truth. They are here to share what they've learned too. And we're all one. So we should probably try to learn from one another, don't you think? So thank you so much for being here and holding this space for me. When I was once afraid, now I am brave. I am finding my own light beyond my own ashes, and I pray that you do too. Until next time, I love you. We're in this together. Keep going.